Focus on Headline. All right, let's take a look at what major issues are making the headlines today on Focus on Headline. For this, first off, joining us, as she always does, usually on Mondays, Kim Minji. Minji, hello to you.
Hello.
And joining us for the very first time here on Korea Now is Kim Suyeon. Suyeon, good to see you today. Welcome to Korea Now.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
We have our new member here, new voice of Korea Now. We do appreciate you guys also for coming in on a substitute holiday. It's always tough to come in, especially with the weather being this way. But nevertheless, speaking of weather, we're actually going to kick things off with what kind of weather that we've been having during the 3-day weekend, especially with a lot of people traveling. It's been terrible. Southern regions of South Korea especially grappling with severe weather conditions. Over in Jeju Island, you have also in Gyeongsang-namdo Province, Jeollanam-do Province. So basically all the southern regions there, record-breaking rainfall, strong winds causing widespread disruption, not to mention damage to property and tragically loss of life. And I know that a number of flights have been canceled to and from Jeju International Airport. Minji, you're going to start us off. Not a good way to spend the holidays. Let us know about this past weekend and the weather conditions.
Sure. So over the past few days, Jeju Island and parts of southern South Korea have faced some of the most challenging weather conditions seen in recent years during this period of time. Starting with Jeju Island, the region was hit by substantial rainfall and fierce winds on Children's Day, leading to significant disruptions. Jeju's local meteorological office issued heavy rain and strong wind warnings, affecting both the mountainous and coastal areas. So the airport saw 71 flight cancellations and numerous delays, impacting hundreds of travelers. Moving to the mainland in Gyeongsang-namdo Province, the impact of weather was even more severe. Tragically, a resident in his 70s was found deceased after being swept away by floodwaters. Emergency services have been stretched with dozens of citizen incidents reported, including flooded homes and fallen trees. And across the region, 48 households in just one village alone were evacuated to safety. Jeollanam-do Province has not been spared, with the area experiencing unprecedented rainfall of as much as 267.5 millimeters, which broke previous May records. The heavy downpours led to extensive flooding, damaging crops and infrastructure. In response, special landslide warnings were issued and preventive evacuations were carried out in vulnerable areas. As the cleanup and assessments continue, authorities remain on high alert. The forecast does indicate that while the rain will ease, the risk of landslides and further flooding remains high, so residents are urged to stay informed and prioritize safety in these challenging conditions.
Yeah, again, we've been talking about volatile weather conditions that we've been seeing over the past few years. Even last year during the summer, during the monsoon season, there was torrential downpour in the central regions, which unfortunately led to a number of casualties and deaths, which, of course, impacted even an ongoing investigation right now to a death of a Marine who was taking part in a search and rescue operation. But again, for all of our listeners out there, I'm sure we have a number of listeners tuning in here in South Korea. Now, you guys are out and about. If you're returning home from your extended holiday, we do hope you guys come back safely, drive safely if you're on the road, and hopefully keep tuning in for some latest weather updates on this. Let's move on here. Yesterday was Children's Day, today being the substitute holiday, right? It's not fair if when a holiday lands on a Sunday when you have day off anyways, so you have Monday off too. But being that yesterday was a very special day for all the children out there, President Yoon Suk Yeol celebrating Children's Day on Sunday by inviting hundreds of children and parents to the Cheongwade, aka the Blue House, that is the former presidential office, to once again commemorate Children's Day yesterday. Sienna, you're going to give us more on this.
Sure. So President Yoon Suk Yeol invited hundreds of children and parents to join the event at the Blue House to commemorate Children's Day on Sunday. And the presidential office said that approximately 360 children and their families attended the Children's Day event, enjoying various educational activities and visiting booths representing different government ministries and agencies. happiness. And earlier in the day, President Yoon delivered a message saying children are the carriers of the nation's hope and the future, encouraging them to pursue their dreams. And the presidential office also said that the event welcomed children from diverse backgrounds, including those from rural areas and foster care with disabilities or multicultural families, and children of soldiers or police officers who sacrificed their lives in duty. And when the children arrived, the president greeted them in person and a military band welcomed participants. So throughout the event, children participated in activities such as making healthy snacks, experiencing different professions like pet grooming, and roles as traffic and fire safety officers. And children who attended the event received gifts, including colored pencils and the presidential office watch. Also, President Yoon made a picture frame using air purifying plant with the children and also watched a bubble magic show. And notably, while First Lady Kim Gun-hee attended last year's Children's Day event at the Blue House alongside President Yoon, she was not present this year. And her absence follows a period of more than 4 months without public appearances since returning from accompanying President Yoon on his trip to the Netherlands in December last year.
That's right. And we're going to be talking a bit more about First Lady Kim Gun-hee and, of course, some of the allegations that are facing. And because of these allegations, she has been away from the public's eyes, and even the Seollal, the Lunar New Year message video, right, usually is accompanied by the president. He was not accompanied by the First Lady at this year's event, and you didn't see this with the Children's Day event. But what a moment for the children there, being able not only to be welcomed by the president, but to be welcomed by a military band. Something you usually get when like a head of state comes in, but children are the future, which is why they were given that amazing welcome. And I'm sure it was an unforgettable moment for these kids out there. Again, today or yesterday was the 102nd anniversary of Children's Day, or the start of Children's Day. Just last week with Professor John DeMoya, we talked about the history of Children's Day. But we're going to be addressing some pressing issues in South Korea regarding, I guess, children and students, because a recent repeal of the Student Rights Ordinance by the Seoul Metropolitan Assembly and the Chungcheongnam-do Provincial Assembly drew quite a sharp criticism from the National Human Rights Commission. This legislation, crucial in protecting students against discrimination, is at the center of a heated debate about the balancing between maintaining discipline and upholding children's rights. As you know, we've talked about how some kids, the few rotten apples, have gone as far as to abuse their own teachers. And so how much rights do teachers get without abusing the students' rights as well? Minji, let's have the latest on this.
Sure. As SJ mentioned, yesterday marks the 102nd anniversary of Children's Day, a day that holds special significance in championing the rights and welfare of children. This year, however, the observance is shadowed by concerns from the National Human Rights Commission of South Korea. Song Do-hwan, the chairperson of the commission, has publicly expressed his regret following decisions by the Seoul Metropolitan Assembly and the Chungcheongnam-do Provincial Assembly to repeal the Students' Rights Ordinance. So this ordinance was pivotal in protecting students against discrimination based on gender, religion, age, sexual orientation, or academic performance. Its repeal raises serious questions about the safeguarding of the students' rights in schools. According to Song, the most common human rights violation reported in schools over the past 5 years include restrictive policies on hairstyles and dress codes, alongside cases of verbal abuse. Then this underscores a systematic issue where students are often seen more as subjects to be disciplined rather than as rights holders. So Chairman Song emphasized that true educational progress requires a balance where both teachers can fully engage in their educational duties and students are respected as independent individuals with rights. He pointed out that the repeal of such ordinances not only undermines the efforts to protect these rights, but also sends a troubling message about the value placed on children's human rights in educational environments. So as this debate unfolds, the need for a thoughtful dialogue on how schools can be run to respect both the educational roles of teachers and the rights of students is clearer than ever. Song's statement calls for a collaborative approach to create educational environments that foster respect and dignity for all students.
So I don't know how things are like in all schools throughout the world, right? But the one thing that I did hear about, because I didn't go to school here in Korea, the furthest my furthest education I've experienced here in Korea was kindergarten, and then that was the end of it. And I spent most of my time first grade and moving forward in the United States. And so when I came to Korea in 2002 I just graduated sophomore year, going into junior year of high school, and I came to Korea with dyed blonde hair and piercings in my ears. My cousins were like, "What in the world is going on here? Are you allowed to do this?" And I said, well, yes. Why can't? Because apparently here in Korea, you're not allowed to pierce your ears. Dyeing your hair is another thing. And so, and then also like, clothes, right? And the way that you dress and things like that. And so I think that's like the least of the rights issues. I think there's other stuff, but there's also reasons for why there are dress codes. There are different, ethics codes in here and things like that. But one thing is for sure, though. I mean, things have gotten better here in Korea compared to where it was before, right? When there was like envelopes being exchanged amongst parents. And so like, if you were from a wealthy family, you got the nice little dealings from the teachers and things like that. We don't see that anymore. But however, on the flip side, though, there's been a lot of abuses towards the teachers. And how do you go about balancing this right now so that both the teachers and the students get the rights here is the big thing moving forward. So we'll keep a close tab on this. Let's move on to domestic politics here. We know that the current ruling PPP, they are running on an interim leadership basis right now, once again. However, they are still without a floor leader. So you have the election for the PPP floor leadership. You have a number of candidates. Lee Jung-ben is fourth term representing Cheongju in the Chungcheongbuk-do province. Song Seok-jun, who served his third term representing Icheon in Gyeonggi-do province. Chu Kyung-ho, a familiar name here, also in his third term representing Daegu's Dalsong-gu district. They all casted their votes. They registered for the nomination process for the PPP floor leadership. Lee Cheol-yu, who's also a three-term lawmaker over at Gangwon-do province, was kind of interested, actually did not run for the floor leadership. So you have a three-way race right now. Suyeon, you're going to tell us more about this three-way race.
Sure. So on Monday, the People Power Party lawmakers applied for registration of candidates for the floor leader election. And as a result, three lawmakers, Lee Jong-bae, Song Seok-jun, and Chu Kyung-ho, registered as candidates. And the three candidates, all former Orthodox administrative officials, entered the National Assembly after holding high-ranking positions. And Lee Jong-bae mainly worked in Chungcheongbuk-do province and the Ministry of Interior and Public Safety, and served as the second Vice Minister of Interior and Public Safety. And Song Seok-jun, a former official of the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport, entered politics after serving as the head of the Seoul Regional Land Management Agency. And also Chu Kyung-ho, who served as the Yoon Suk Yeol government's first Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister, served as the head of the Office for Government Policy Coordination after going through major economic ministries when he was a public servant.
Yeah, so I mean, there's a number of names here, but I think for some of our listeners who have been tuning into our program quite a bit, the name Chu Kyung-ho, of course, has been the more familiar name, given that he was, the former Deputy Prime Minister, not to mention the Finance Minister as well. And now he is running for the floor leadership for the ruling PPP. It's a big role right now. It's one thing to have an interim leader right now. That's going to change in months from now on, because the PPP is going to have their national convention where they're going to be choosing its new leader. However, they're saying that they're unable to come up with like the proper candidate. Like no one wants to really want to run for that position right now. So the floor leadership is that much more important, given the fact that the 22nd National Assembly is going to start real soon, and combine that with the fact that the ruling PPP, another landslide loss against the main opposition Democratic Party and some of the minor parties out there during the April 10th general elections. They're required, the floor leader is expected to reorganize the party's ranks, reestablish the party-government relationship. So let's talk about what the candidates vow to do if they become the floor leader of the PPP.
Sure. So Lee Jong-bae said in a message to the elected officials that this floor leader election is the first step to engrave the people's stern will revealed in the last general election and to start again with a determination to renew it. And Song Seok-jun, who was the first to announce his candidacy, met with reporters after submitting his application and highlighted the importance of the party leadership humbly accepting and effectively supporting public sentiment. And Chu Kyung-ho said in a declaration of his candidacy that the party is currently facing a very serious situation after the 22nd general election, highlighting the importance of gathering the wisdom of lawmakers to regain the reputation in serving the people's interests. And the ruling PPP will hear from the candidate on Wednesday and then vote on Thursday to elect the next floor leader.
Yeah, again, I mean, the message is kind of, you have like a similar message across, right? Hearing the public sentiment referring to the landslide loss during the general elections, but not a lot of emphasis on trying to kind of work with the rival party. I mean, that seems to be kind of the thing. When President Yoon, inviting DP leader Lee Jae-myung over tea time, lasted 2 hours and 10 minutes, and there was talks about more further discussions on that front. But they're still clashing right now. I think he saw that during last week's plenary session, where the PPP decided they were going to boycott a very contentious bill in regards to the special probe into the death of a young Marine in last year's torrential floods. And so, the hope was that going into the next National Assembly, there was going to be more bipartisan cooperation. However, it doesn't seem like that, which is all the more reason why for the PPP then to have the right man leading the way for the floor leadership. There's a lot of emphasis on that. Mentioned earlier that during the Children's Day celebrations at the Cheongwade, or the Blue House, the former presidential office, President Yoon had invited a number of children and their parents and so forth. However, missing from the celebrations was First Lady Kim Gun-hee. She hasn't been in the public's eye for months now, considering the fact that there is a number of high-profile allegations against the First Lady. The South Korean prosecutors set to begin a probe into allegations involving her. First off, receiving a luxury bag, potentially linked to the president's official duties. There's, of course, the other issue in regards to the allegations of stock manipulation. However, that seems to be kind of another separate issue. But the receiving of this luxury bag has sparked a debate over the implication of the anti-graft law and its coverage. So, Minji, let's get the latest on this.
Sure. So the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office is intensifying its investigation into allegations that First Lady Kim Gun-hee accepted a luxury handbag valued at 3 million Korean won, about $22,000 from US-based pastor Choi Jae-young in 2022. So this incident reportedly occurred shortly after President Yoon Suk Yeol's inauguration and was disclosed by the online media outlet Voice of Seoul, which claims the exchange was covertly filmed using a hidden camera. Legal experts are particularly focused on whether there's a direct link between the gift received by First Lady Kim and President Yoon's official duties. The connection, if established, could potentially align with violations of South Korea's stringent anti-graft laws, which prohibit spouses of public officials from accepting gifts related to official duties. However, despite potential breaches, the anti-graft law does not explicitly provide for the punishment of officials' spouses for such infractions, leaving a significant loophole. So the primary legal question here revolves around whether President Yoon was aware of the gift and if he duly reportedly as required by law. Meanwhile, the law does penalize individuals who provide financial gifts to spouses of public officials. So consequently, Pastor Che could actually be subject to penalties.
Yeah, and what's interesting is actually it was the Korean-American pastor who revealed to the public, right, that he had given this luxury bag. And it gets really weird because they've known each other for a really, really long time. And I think he came out saying that, I mean, some of the things that the First Lady was saying during their discussions, he could not just idly sit by and not reveal to the world what's being mentioned here. And I'm not going to go into too much details about some of the conversation that they had, but it did seem like the First Lady was making calls here and there. The hard thing is, right, to prove that something was done by the president according to what the First Lady had wanted, right? Like as if, the First Lady was calling all the shots here, but there is no proof of this. And so are you going to get to her for the anti-graft law, or what is it going to be is the big thing here. But knowing this has been a big mole on the current Yoon administration, this is one of the main reasons for why the First Lady has not been seen at the public eye. Again, just to kind of clarify for our listeners out there, the law is quite strict on public officials themselves. The regulations concerning their spouses, again, less stringent, as we mentioned earlier. This gap in the law, though, is central to the ongoing debate and investigation. So, Minji, tell us more about the specific allegations and how the prosecutors plan to proceed with this case, though.
Of course, the focus of the prosecution's inquiry is not only on the origins and implications of the luxury bag gift accepted by Kim Gon-hee, but also on examining claims surrounding Pastor Choi Jae-young, who was involved in the incident. The online media outlet Voice of Seoul has argued that President Yoon has the authority to appoint individuals like Pastor Choi to Presidential Advisory Council for Democracy, Peace, and Unification, which could potentially underscore the problematic nature of their association. Baek Eun-jong, head of Voice of Seoul and the accuser of this case, was initially scheduled to meet with the prosecutors on May 9th, but this meeting was actually postponed at the request of Baek's legal team. So as this investigation progresses, it raises broader questions about the adequacy of the current law in addressing the complexity of such cases and whether public opinion might influence potential legislative changes, including the proposed special investigation bill against Kim Gon-hee.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, there's been some push for a special investigation, which has been vetoed by the president. But I mean, that's his wife, right? I mean, that was one of those things that a lot of people are saying. I mean, there's a lot of things that President Yoon did veto, a lot of bills that was brought forward by the DP. But of course, he was going to veto this. And are they going to go for a revote? I don't know. But the fact of the matter is, I think the receiving of the luxury bag is like minimal compared to some of the other things that she could be hit with. But that's the hard part. It's really hard to kind of prove some of this. And I forgot how long the recorded conversation was, but there was a lot of interesting things going back and forth in regards to this, whether or not Kim Gon-hee, the First Lady Kim Gon-hee, was actually calling the shots and not the president himself. But again, hard to prove all of that. Let's go into economy this time. We've been complaining about inflation quite a bit, and especially when given the fact that sometimes, especially during Children's Day and all these holidays, and May being family month, and you got to take your parents out to dinner and stuff like that. Dining out is expensive. 35th consecutive month that South Korea has seen dining out or eating out inflation prices surpassing the overall consumer price inflation average. Suyeon, let's get more on this.
Sure. So in April, the dining out inflation rate stood at 3%, slightly higher than the overall CPI average of 2.9%. And this trend has persisted since June 2021. And among the 39 sub-items for eating out, approximately half, totaling 19 items, were above the CPI average. And tteokbokki topped the list with a 5.9% increase, and followed closely by bibimbap and kimbap at 5.3%. And notably, none of the 39 items witnessed a decrease in price. However, there is a positive sign as the gap between dining out inflation and the overall average has narrowed to 0.1 percentage points, the smallest since June 2021. And this is attributed to the gradual slowdown in dining out inflation inflation, which recorded a 4.3% in January, 3.8% in February, 3.4% in March, and 3% in April. And in the processed food sector, inflation outpaced the overall CPI average for 26 months, but has since dipped below the average for 3 consecutive months. And last month, the processed food inflation rate was 1.6%, notably lower than the overall average. And breaking down the processed food sector by item, sugar registered the highest increase at 18.6%, followed by salt and alcoholic beverages. However, some items witnessed price decreases, including soju, flour, ramen, and kimchi. And despite the slowdown in dining out inflation, recent price hikes in food and dining establishments have hindered the overall decline. So various franchises have increased prices recently, and an industry insider from the food sector highlighted the possibility of more companies raising prices in response to escalating costs. And in the meantime, last Friday, the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs convened a meeting with food and restaurant companies urging active cooperation to stabilize inflation.
Yeah, so just because the inflation rate's slowing down doesn't mean that the food prices of whatever menu you're choosing is going to go down too, right? I mean, I've always been making comparisons to my favorite sundae-국밥, right? How I used to say I used to pay like 5,000 won for a bowl of that, but now it's like 10,000 won. If the inflation CPI goes down, it doesn't mean that, the price of one bowl of sundae-guk is going to go down to 8,000 won, 7,000 won, or 6,000 won anymore. It's just going to be the same. It's just that it's probably not going to go up any further than this. And we mentioned even with soju, right? The one thing you don't want to kind of mess people around with is the prices of soju. Over the weekend, met a buddy of mine, 6,000 won for a bottle of soju at a restaurant. That's compared to about, 3,000 won that it used to be for a bottle. And we're complaining, both of us, same age, we're complaining about the high prices of soju, and yet we're going, ding dong, another bottle, please, right? And so what are we going to do? And we're forced to pay all of this, and people know this, but also just to kind of meet the price level of the consumers, what we're also seeing is shrinkflation, where you're paying the same amount, but you're getting less items. And I believe the government also did say that they're trying to crack down on a number of restaurants who are practicing this whole shrinkflation practice there. We're going to move on here. We've talked about how competitive the e-commerce platform has been here in Korea. Not only you had like Coupang and 11th Street and G Market, all the domestic companies battling it out. But now you have all these Chinese companies coming in. The big one, AliExpress, they've been certainly making a lot of wave. Despite its promise of rock bottom prices and no entry or sales fees for sellers, seems like the platform might not always offer the best deal for the consumers. I've noticed that it's actually not as cheap as we thought it was going to be, especially compared to local Korean e-commerce sites. Minji, let's get more on this.
Sure. So AliExpress, a major player in the global e-commerce market, has been aggressively targeting the Korean market with a strategy centered around ultra-low priced goods from China. However, when it comes to selling Korean products, the story seems a bit different. Despite various promotions, including an indefinite 100 billion festa, AliExpress doesn't always have the best prices on Korean goods. For instance, a comparison of prices for 30 daily necessities listed by the Korea Consumers Affairs Ministry reveals that products on AliExpress are often more expensive than those on local sites like Coupang, G Market, and 11th Street. A notable example include a pack of 20 안성탕면, which sells for 19,000 Korean won, about $14 on AliExpress, a staggering 45.4% more than Coupang's price of 13,700 won, or about $10. Even more, household items like Listerine Total Care Plus and various personal care products from brands like Neutrogena and Johnson's Baby Lotion also show significant price discrepancies, being priced higher on AliExpress compared to Coupang and other local platforms. So the trend continues in electronics, where items like Samsung Odyssey G7 gaming monitor and LG Gram laptop are significantly cheaper on G Market than on AliExpress. This pattern raises questions about the pricing strategy of AliExpress, especially when considering their policy of charging 0 Korean won for entry and sales fees for sellers. Experts also suggest that larger brand sellers may be maintaining higher prices on AliExpress to preserve relationship with domestic e-commerce platforms where they face competitive pressures. Moreover, the approach might be part of a broader strategy known as the bait product strategy, where low prices on select items draw in consumers who then end up buying other regularly priced goods.
First of all, why would you go to AliExpress to buy ramyeon, Korean ramyeon of all things? The right thing is, the sensible thing is go to a Korean website, right, to buy all of this. But that also makes sense too. If the Korean companies are trying to help out each other, right? To help out the Korean e-commerce companies. They just list all their stuff since it's free to list anyways. Much higher prices than they would do in like the Korean e-commerce companies. But it's weird. AliExpress got weird. Like it went from like after its entry into Korea, like it went from being known to sell really, really cheap stuff that no one really needs to now having everything, including stuff in Korea, but more expensive. So, it's not going to work out that way, right? So, AliExpress, obviously, their point is try to get more customers through low prices, especially on Chinese goods, where the reality for Korean products on the platform, very different, but it makes sense, right? AliExpress is a Chinese e-commerce company. Things are going to be cheaper for Chinese goods and Korean goods, probably not so much. What's the general reaction from the consumer base in regards to the pricing strategy, though?
Well, consumers are certainly taking note. While some are initially attracted by the big discounts on promotional items, they often find that regular products are not as competitively priced as expected. So the sentiment is mixed, and it appears that AliExpress will need to reassess its pricing policies if it wants to sustain its market share here in Korea, especially considering the significant marketing expenses involved with ongoing promotions. Industry insiders also speculate that about the future moves of AliExpress. They believe that while the current promotional strategy has been effective in capturing market attention, it might not be sustainable in the long run without adjustments to how products are priced across the board.
Let's move on here. Indonesia has put forward a proposal to drastically reduce its payment for a joint fighter jet development venture with South Korea. This is going to be a problem given the fact that Indonesia has already been having a hard time paying its contribution in the first place. So, let's get more on this.
Sure. So Indonesia has suggested reducing its contribution to the KF-21 jet project, a collaborated effort with South Korea, to approximately 1/3 of its initial commitment. And specifically, Indonesia recently suggested paying only around $442 million or 600 billion Korean won in total for the KF-21 jet project. However, it is worth noting that back in January 2016, Indonesia originally agreed to cover about 20% of the project's cost, which was around 8.1 trillion Korean won, or about $6 billion launched in 2015 in order to build the advanced supersonic fighter jet by 2026. And initially, Indonesia agreed to make this payment in exchange for one prototype model, technology transfers, and the production of 48 units in Indonesia. However, it appears that Indonesia is now seeking to reduce its payment amount, possibly in exchange for fewer technology transfers. And it has so far contributed around $224 million or 300 billion Korean won to the project and has failed to keep up with payment deadlines. And Indonesia is known to have asked South Korea last year to defer its payment for the project to 2034, but Seoul has maintained its stance that it should be made by the deadline of 2026. And a government official said consultations are underway with Indonesia, adding that the government has yet to decide whether to accept the proposal. And South Korea's Defense Acquisition Program Administration said that in order to successfully complete the development of the KF-21 system, and the government of both both South Korea and Indonesia are conducting final negotiations to resolve the current cost-sharing issues. And Indonesia's defense ministry did not immediately respond to a request from comment.
I mean, from $6 billion to $442 million US dollars. That is a significant reduction there. We have time for one last story. It is a developing story and a very tragic one at that over in Los Angeles, sparking quite an outrage, calling for a thorough investigation into the matter. A Korean man in his 40s fatally shot by police under circumstances that are now being questioned right now. Minji, tell us more about this particular incident.
So it occurred on May 2nd in the heart of Koreatown, Los Angeles, where 40-year-old man Yang Yoon was confronted by police officers responding to a mental health crisis call. The police were called to assist workers from the LA County Department of Mental Health who were there to transfer Yang to a facility for a mandatory 72-hour observation following a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. So this request was made by his parents concerned for his mental well-being. However, according to the police, Yang was allegedly found holding an 11-inch knife and advanced towards the officers, which resulted in the police shooting him. However, Yang's family tells a different story. Yang's father stated that his son was not violent, but was instead frightened by the sudden arrival of several officers at their home. And according to him, his son did not have a knife at the time of the shooting. And the family also noted lack of immediate medical assistance at the scene.
I mean, again, they have police body cameras, right? I think it's going to be important to check whether or not he was seen with a knife. But there's a huge difference between a suspect holding a gun towards the police and holding a knife, even if it's an 11-inch knife, because there are other ways to subdue the person without having to shoot any bullets. Tragic story. Well, we'll see what kind of developments we get out of this. But guys, thank you very much for coming in on today on a substitute holiday. And Suyun, welcome to Korea Now. And guys, we'll see you guys again in the near future.
Thank you.
You can listen to Korea Now with me, SJ Lee, by downloading the Arirang Radio application or tune in online by visiting www.arirangradio.com. So make sure you tune in Mondays through Fridays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Korea time.